Hello everyone, it's Uncle Destiny back with you, and it's time again for our reading for the month of April. We've just recently had the vernal equinox, so we're now in the season of spring and heading towards summer. We're also right now in the middle of a Mercury and Jupiter retrograde, so there's definitely some shifts in the cosmic energy that is pushing us through and keeps our world in balance. So, why don't we go ahead and get the ancestors in to see what they say about the month of April and how this retrogrades as well as this change of season is going to have an effect on all of us. Alright, we've thrown the spread, and now let us see what the ancestors have to say. Now, anything that doesn't stay on the reading surface is not part of it, which we have our collection over there. So we've got a very wide field here. And we're going to start with our usual, the large three bones. This one is family. This one is work. This one, I'm going to say, is social. So, but before I even get too deep into what those actually mean, I'm just going to talk a bit about the larger overall image here. And what I'm seeing kind of reminds me of like a tennis match, because here's the net and here's the two players on either side of it, and then you've got the spectators in between. I don't know if tennis match is the right image, but it's kind of part of what I'm seeing there. Soccer might be another one, and this is the line between the two different sides. But there's definitely a spread out component. There's a lot of things that are not exactly in interaction with each other. So there's a bunch of almost siloing. A lot of things are not really touching each other between these three topics, as opposed to what we've got going on here. And this is something definitely big going on here. All right, so let's go ahead and get back into this. So family. So as you can see, we've got that bone with a rib and several of the support and tailbone, so spinal. So there's issues around inspiration and the lifeblood of family that are going on, and trying to find not just the intellectual balance in it, but also a emotional balance in it. So the intellectual balance is represented here by the spinal, which carries the electrical signals. And then over here we have one of the tailbones. So that's about the balancing in motion. So that's the emotional, that's the intellectual. This representing the physical ability to move. And of course the rib bone representing air and aspiration. So spirit. So there's going to be work to be done with the family around intellectual, movement, as well as spiritual balance. Now, with all the fact that it's only going towards this end of the bone, it's not going to be a lot of the family members. It's only going to be a smaller number of them that are going to be needing to be worked with. So it might just it might be, well, since we're dealing with the season of dealing with applications for college, it might be just dealing with someone who is about ready to go off, getting their acceptance letters to go off to college. It may be dealing with somebody, just a single or two family members who are going to be dealing maybe with some surgeries. It may be dealing with some family members about counseling how they handle money. But it's about the family and the balance there. It's going to be a limited number of people. It's not going to be the whole family. So it might be the ones in your immediate in your immediate home. It might be the ones nearby. And again, we also talk about our family of choice as well. There are also people we deal with too. So that's also covered in the family caveat. All right? So we move over here to work. And again, we've got the rib bone. So we've got a lot more dealing with inspiration, dealing with aspiration and the flow. It actually kind of reminds me of like a fishing hook. So there's going to be Sorry, been dealing with asthma and allergies these last few weeks. Um, there's an aspect of catching, like a hook you use to catch either a fish, or that might be used to hold a piece of cloth together, like a safety pin. And there's about you've got it open, ready to close hook the item and then close around it. So there's going to be some new opportunity coming through on the work front. Ones that are going to be, you just got to be ready out there with your hook, ready to catch it and close the loop on it. If not, another way to also look at this one is also the scythe or the sickle. So you're ready to cut the wheat, which at this point we'll be starting getting into a growing season as well at work. And we've also got several of the rib and spine bones around it. So there's, again, balance. Balance emotional, balance mental, balance physical. So, much like with the family, same principles here, but it's about catching whatever this new opportunity and possibility is coming to you. Now we move over here to social. And as you can see, the social also has a number of the balancing tailbones in it. But it's also a slight distance away from it, but it's still close enough to it that balance is going to be the biggest thing going on socially. And I'd also almost say, interestingly enough, because of where the bones are positioned due to the light, there's a matter of rebalancing the shadows. Now, that might sound ominous, but it actually feels like it might be a good thing, because there are forces in the light and there are forces in the dark. Some of the forces in the dark have gotten out of hand. And now the forces that make up that darkness have to rebalance. They need to balance each other. And that's going to be some of what's going on here. Is there's a social rebalancing of the dark components. So that means a lot of things that have been coming up in these last several months have really brought up a lot of the dark elements, the very negative, the very ego-driven, negative, pride-driven components in people, in our families, in our work, in our society. And it's time to rebalance those. It's time to remind people that those are not the qualities that build society. They're not the qualities that ensure that a society continues forward. Those are not the qualities that ensures that life moves forward. And it's sort of bringing that awareness back to people, bringing that back in balance, and it's operating from that balance point as opposed to the extremes. And so even in shadows, there are things that are actions that are going to need to happen to bring those shadows back into balance. All right? So we'll move now over here to the copper piece, which has its representation of the conduit for spirit. We have the shell, which is an aspect of nature, but also armor. And also the quartz piece, which is about memory, which is about the crystalline elements of the past and what are still there to inform us. In some ways, I would also describe the quartz piece as being similar to the Adinkra principle of Sankofa, which is okay, which translates it is okay to go back to the past and get what you have forgotten. So there is memories that we have forgotten, or that we need to at least reconnect with to provide us information. And that's one of the biggest things I see here in this alignment. Because if you look at it, the quartz crystal is at the top, and this is like the head, and this is where we hold many memories, but we also hold memories in our bodies as well, and that's represented here in the shell, because it's the shells, and it's the shell turned to the inside, so it's our internal world, it's our internal self. So there's memories that are also being taken care of on our inside, ourselves, and that softness. And there's stuff that needs to be cleared out. Now, the fact that the the copper piece, which is spirit, is at the bottom, which represents connection to one of our biggest spiritual components of the world, is the earth itself. So there is memories about earth, about our relationship to the earth, that we need to look at what we're doing on internally and that connection to it. There is both the aspect of we need to be grounded. It's not just a term in spiritual purposes, but it's also a term in psychological purposes. Are we properly anchored to something that is of a foundation? And I'm going to be very blunt here about a foundation that is made out of the things that we want to grow. Now, why I say that is that there's a lot of times we can build foundations out of pain. We can build foundations out of suffering. We can build foundations out of righteousness. We can also build foundations around the principles of mutual respect. We can build foundations around the principle of love. We can build foundations around the principles that we all have a right to exist. We all have, not just right, we all are part of this world and we exist here. The issue is whether or not and how long those foundations can be maintained. And that's where the aspect of what we're putting into the earth, what we're building the foundation around, that energy is important. So if we're building a foundation around pain, when do we switch that foundation from pain to healing? If we're building that foundation around righteous fury, what happens when that fire goes away? If we're building a foundation around the sense that we need to protect ourselves from something, what happens when that threat goes away? Those foundations then either sink, become corrupted, or collapse. So there is a strong element if you're looking at what foundations have been made and have been existing, and how do we replace them? How do we also recognize when they're now no longer functioning? And I believe that's part of what's going over here in the shadow with the balancing and social component. There are foundations not only of our individual lives, but of our families, of our communities, of our countries, that it's time to review what those foundations were that built them, and whether it's time to replace some of them, whether it's some that we need to heal up, and whether or not these are still the things we want to build our future off of. Because a tainted foundation is still a tainted future. And that's something here that's very much, we have lots of the tailbones here around this one, about the balance, about the physical balance, as well as also a spinal piece, so intellectual, emotional. So where is the balance in that's going on? And the fact that we have spirit presenting in this point here is that there is a strong amount of balance that needs to be happening through memory, through the body, through spirit and the earth, about what are we building, and what have we built from, and is it still a viable foundation? Does it need to be repaired? Because all foundations sooner or later need to be repaired, because no matter what foundation you build, no matter what you pour, no matter what happens, they are on top of earth. And earth is moving. Earth is always shifting. While it may take a long time, it is always shifting. And foundations sink. Foundations get shattered. So we need to find balance and bring those back into place. So, that is the read. Oh, nope, I have one more. I'm going to catch this one over here, which is another one of the rib bones, inspiration. And this is actually one of the Nope, is this the damaged one? Nope, it's not the damaged one. Sorry. This particular one is talking about is another spiritual influence, and it's because you notice that it's over in proximity to the family one. So it's going to be some spiritual inspiration that's going to be coming into the family. So new jobs, new potentials for work, new projects to bring the family together. Who knows? Maybe even a family reunion is in somewhere in the future. But again, there's going to be inspiration for something to change in the family. So that is the reading for the month of April. I hope everybody is well. On behalf of the Orisha, the Loas, the ancestors, may you have a blessed April. May you find your balance. May you build for the future on a place that is solid. And remember to repair your foundation when it becomes damaged. On behalf of all,